Jalen Williams, 16 points, throws it away. Haliburton comes up with it. Cross court, Siakam for the slam.
This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. It is our go live, our live version, wrap up of Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Back in the fold, as always. And, we just witnessed what we call as a mollywhopping of the Oklahoma City Thunder as the Indiana Pacers even up the series 3-3. That means that we will have a Game 7 in OKC. Alongside of me, I got to roll with my right-hand man, brother from another mother, Mr. Warren Shaw, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. What's good, Mr. Shaw? I appreciate you giving us a little glimpse into the fervor that took place in Indiana. The Siakam posterization gives us a good Juneteenth feel to a level of jubilance, I'm sure, is emanating out there in Indiana, right?
Oh, yeah, something like that, right? I think that was the defining moment, I think, of that second half and the proverbial nail in the coffin early on, for this game here. Siakam, with that, monstrous, thunderous dunk. And then even before the half ends, he hits a fadeaway jumper, to kind of push the lead up to 24. So the Indiana Pacers dominate this game, not start to finish, because they were down here to start in the beginning of the first quarter. But, once the subs came in, TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin kind of do their thing yet again here. A very, very slow start to start the third quarter for both teams. But Indiana ends up just taking this thing kind of going away, man. A miraculous game, I think, from their lens, especially going into it with a hobbled Tyrese Haliburton. OKC not getting it done here, despite being on the road. I get it. But, man, with Haliburton down like this, really, really surprising that they got whooped the way they did here on the road or otherwise. But I just would have expected a different outcome. Even if OKC lost, I just think they were going to go down like this.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it 100. This was a piss poor performance by the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's just no getting around it. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to, drum up any level of controversy or listen, you and I have had many episodes and we have spoken very highly about the Oklahoma City Thunder. But we also have to recognize that it's because of how well they've played wire to wire that when you see performances like this, it just really makes you wonder, what were they thinking when they got out there onto the basketball court? Now, I could put on my conspiracy theory hat and say, you know what? They just felt like they didn't have it, and they just, I want to say packed it in, but it's almost like they had their mind made up. They're going to try to finish this out in OKC, even if it is a Game 7. But when I tell you, Shaw, when I see the level of, attention to detail, when I see the level of effort that's being played, I'm not questioning a team saying that they're dogging it. But what I'm saying is when they are mentally checked out and the opposing team sees that and they prey on that, it's your responsibility to at least instill a level of doubt that maybe you didn't come with your A effort, and thus, if you do play your A game, you still don't have a chance, even if it's going to be a Game 7. What I saw from this is you left the gate wide open because, to your point, Tyrese Haliburton was not 100%, but TJ McConnell, yet again in this series, has been a difference maker. The role players for the Indiana Pacers have been difference makers, and they have been increasingly becoming X factors as they get further and further into the series, to the point where I would not be surprised if Rick Carlisle, not in a level of desperation, but in a level of strategy, deploys, that Haliburton McConnell thing that they were afraid of doing throughout the course of this finals, that he deploys that full tilt because he recognizes that McConnell actually sees matchups that favor him because of the lack of attention to detail by the OKC Thunder backcourt defense. And I'm even putting that on Alex Caruso, who at times has not been able to contain TJ McConnell when he's been matched up with him. SGA, poor defensive performance. Jalen Williams has his problems. He's too big for a guy like McConnell who will get past him. So this is a problem. And I think if the OKC Thunder collectively defensively gets their mind right, okay. But if it was an indication that this game 7 looks like what the Indiana Pacers are going to do to the OKC Thunder defense, OKC Thunder really do need to look at what they're going to have to do offensively, because they've not been consistent offensively, but they had been consistent defensively for the most part. And we just saw literally that defense just collapsed. That defense was a no-show. There was no level of aggression. I don't know if they were tired or again, like I said, they could have just been checking out and not, thinking that, hey, you know what? We'll take our chances with a game 7. And that's just not.
I don't think you can take chances with the game 7.
But that's what I'm saying. Like it's to me, that's a level of arrogance if you think that you are going to be like that. But
I think they got.
I don't know what's in
I think they got beat, and I know like you don't want that to happen. You don't want that to be the case. It's like, oh well, you're just gonna whatever. I mean, we saw that happen. Like what was it in the Rockets in the Warriors series, where Golden State is like they clearly took a game off, and that was early in the playoffs or whatever, because they just felt like, hey, they'd be able to get it done, and they ended up going 7 games. I don't think that's what happened here. I think what ended up happening on the Indiana side is that they played for their lives. And they started to force turnovers. They sent doubles at SGA that we haven't really seen as much in this series, especially when SGA tries to do. If SGA turns his back, usually he's facing somebody, he's facing them hard, and he may be dancing, but he's straight on with the basket. He turned his back a little bit, almost like, if he was trying to post up or to do that, like the Smitty, and kind of go back. And in the end, it would send help anytime that happened. And then that was forcing turnovers. The Pacers defense in this game specifically, in the middle of that second quarter, as you alluded to, especially when McConnell and Toppin kind of in the game they just bring another level of energy. And I don't know what more we can say about Haliburton just being a leader, stepping out into this space, going out there literally on one leg, and what that does for the mantra and the energy of your team. And while they didn't get off to that great start, I think him just being out there as a leader showed so much for them. And OKC was not on their best game. And I just, yes, they're young, because I think that's what the broadcast was saying. Dagnall keeps saying, hey, we're the youngest team, or the second youngest team ever even to make it to the NBA Finals. That as not utilizing that as an excuse. I want to give all the credit to Indiana here, and not like OKC didn't know what to do or they didn't know how to play. Like, they got whooped. Indiana was literally playing for their lives. And we saw something from this Pacers team that by now we should probably expect and be used to. But I think you had called it. You said OKC in 5, and I said that was the right call. I still picked OK in 7, just because I was like, this Indiana team has something that we cannot quantify. And we saw that not be quantified here tonight in the effort that they showed here, especially from the middle of that first quarter all the way out through the rest of this game.
So I want to touch on something that you just mentioned about Tyrese Haliburton. And it's what I think we were talking about a couple of times over, or at least what my expectations are about Tyrese Haliburton. Because the narrative has been Tyrese Haliburton has got to be that guy. He's got to be hitting those shots, this, that, and the third. No, Tyrese Haliburton doesn't have to be that kind of guy. I don't even think Tyrese Haliburton ever had to be that person. But the fact that he has that a part of his game, and I've said this time and time again, is a great asset, because it takes the pressure off of those role players who, when given that opportunity and time to shine, they may not be able to handle it, with the exception of TJ McConnell. But in a situation like this, right, in a game like this, it's very easy for the Rick Carlisles of the world, for an Indiana Pacers team that has gotten this far, to say, I know you're hobbled, Tyrese, but take us to the promised land. And he didn't fall for that. He didn't bite on that. He wasn't out there to be a bait either, but he was out there to help facilitate and get guys where they needed to be to maximize great shot opportunities that the Indiana Pacers made good on in a critical win or go home or lose all situation with the Pacers, right? And if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder, while your whole intent defensively was to, go after the wounded animal, the miscalculation was not respecting the fact that Tyrese Haliburton is a floor general. He's a legitimate floor. I will make the argument, Shaw, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I want people to really understand where I'm coming from. Tyrese Haliburton, to me, exhibits more floor general qualities than SGA, in the sense that he can distribute the basketball. He can also make critical shots down the stretch. And while it's great that SGA can score some 32 points per game, you clearly saw the difference in the demeanor and the mentality and the tone of the expectations of what is asked of your team. If on a pivot, SGA didn't need to have to take so many shots, he could have been a great distributor, could easily put the ball in the hands of other guys to go out there and make plays. But instead, OKC is watching their MVP player go out there, make bad decisions with the basketball, turning the basketball over, bad shot selection, things of that nature. At some point, you as SGA, you have to stop yourself. And you have to say, am I helping the team or am I hurting the team? Now, this is just one particular game. And again, I'm not trying to play up the controversy that SGA is not deserving of being the MVP and he's not the greatest player, whatever the case may be. But what I'm saying is, in a situation like this, when you don't have one aspect of your game that is working for you, that is part of in totality what makes the OKC Thunder the great team that they are and where they are, you have to figure out a way to pivot. And somehow in the last 48 hours, when everything has been about the calf strain and whether or not Tyrese Haliburton was going to be able to come out there and be on the basketball court, this wasn't a Willis Reed moment, but you saw leadership qualities in a guy who made the great sacrifice play. He didn't fall for the trap of having to go out there and jack up shots and make bad decisions and feel like he's got to put it on his shoulders. He actually relied on his teammates and his role players, everybody straight through, helped make him a great player, make it easy for him to help this Indiana Pacers team do what they did to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And this, to me, Shaw, is what makes the Indiana Pacers dangerous going into Game 7, because now it opens up these things that we didn't think were, I want to say tangible, but were amenable given the circumstances, because OKC had been in front of most of those things. They had a counter for some of these things. You cannot counter when you even don't know whether or not they're going to need Haliburton. You never know. Haliburton might actually step up and have one of those performances that he had back in Game 1 because of what just took place.
I think it's really interesting how quiet it gets, right? Because he had 14 points and 5 assists in 23 minutes, right? And obviously wasn't really needed, didn't play any minutes in the fourth quarter. So all the noise around Haliburton and what he needs to do and how he needs to do it is kind of muted now as a result of this win. But I think, to your point, it's because everybody was already uplifted just by the virtue of him being on the court. And then Obi Toppin had an Obi Toppin type game, and McConnell does McConnell-like things as well, too. They didn't get a whole lot from Mathurin, and some other guys. They got a couple threes from Ben Shepherd tonight as well. But outside of that, it was just the way Toppin and McConnell played that uplifted this bench, and Nembhard with some timely shots as well. Siakam, I think, has been solid throughout the course of the series. Did not a great scoring night, wasn't needed, obviously, as they kind of blow the doors off them in the second half. And those are the things that were kind of like all in Indiana's favor. Like it was their night. And as you alluded to with SGA, he gets all of the credit. He's not necessarily a maligned superstar in many ways, and nearly not as nearly as maligned as Tyrese Haliburton is. And maybe Haliburton doesn't have the same cachet, right? But SGA did have 8 turnovers tonight. And again, that's why, you have to credit Carlisle in the defensive scheme. They said the broadcast even indicated Nembhard is not picking him up 94 feet. Now, hey, we're picking him up a little bit above the break, trying to save Nembhard's legs so that he can contribute on the offensive side. There were subtle differences in tonight's game and tonight's attack for the Indiana Pacers. Yes, with their season on the line, but they tried some things there that seemed to frustrate OKC. And I don't think we can go another minute without talking about how bad Chet Holmgren has looked at various parts of this series. Miles Turner, I wouldn't say is having an amazing series statistically himself, but the floor game And the head games, he seems to be playing with Chet Holmgren. That has been masterful. Holmgren cannot get by Miles Turner when they're on the floor, and Holmgren just looks lost. Turner's blocked the shot on multiple occasions, frustrated, and Holmgren's trying to do too much off the bounce. I have to credit Miles Turner. While he shot 1 of 9 and had 3 points tonight and 2 blocks, he is in Holmgren's head, and that's something Chet, if they're going to win Game 7, he has to figure it out, because you can't say, oh, Jalen Williams is going to give you another 40 again. Like, yes, that was great, but I think you can't rely on that. Chet has to figure out a way to get involved in this series.
Well, so Sean, let's go ahead and pivot to that point, right? The Oklahoma City Thunder were 8 for 30 from 3. Okay. And at some particular point, I don't know. Well, now we can't, because this is a Game 7. So there's no wiggle room here. But at some point, if I'm Dagenhart, I got to be looking at my team, and I got to be like, why are we jacking up threes? I'm not saying that you shouldn't shoot the 3. If it's available and it's within the flow of what your offense is supposed to be doing, I got no problem with it. You know what I mean? But nothing about the Oklahoma City Thunder offensive scheme shows a level of aggressiveness of attacking a team that, yes, while they have stepped up defensively in this finals, it still doesn't mask the fact that you're getting foul calls, you're getting opportunities to get to the free throw line, but yet you bail out the other team by jacking up threes that you're not even making. The threes that have been hit in the last 2 games have been by Wiggins. Your what is it? Your third deep bench player, right? It's not coming from Jalen Williams. It's not coming from a ton of guys with this level of consistency. So I don't understand.
I mean, hold on. I have to stop you only from the lines, because I think you can't always look at just the bottom line number, right? And with OKC, in totality, did they shoot 33s? Well, how many of those threes came after the game was out of hand? So they shot 10 threes in the fourth quarter when the game was done. So at the end of the day, they shot 23s in the first 3 quarters, 1 of 11 in the first half. Not great, right? They're not a great 3-point shooting team. They very much ride off momentum, but I don't think that was a huge factor in their overall offensive attack. I think it was more of the turnovers than the shooting.
I understand what you're saying, Shaw, but let me slightly now push back to you on this point. I am focusing on the timing of, or the execution of, the shots. If what you're telling me is the Pacers are forcing the Oklahoma City Thunder to shoot threes, forget the number. I'm just saying you're forcing them to shoot threes rather than attacking the basket. Okay, then that's one thing. But that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. The Oklahoma City Thunder are choosing to shoot the 3 ball. They pass it around. I don't see the level of aggressiveness in attacking the Indiana Pacers, putting them on their heels with a consistent amount of effort. It almost feels like if the Pacers find a rhythm offensively and start pushing the Thunder to where it's in their head, they seem like, okay, I have to start taking shots. And let me say this. Let me not use just the word 3. Let's say they're shooting the basketball rather than attacking with the basketball. They're bailing out on fadeaways. They're bailing out on mid-range jump shots that are not particularly where they want things to be, or they're just standing there watching SGA try to take those shots. And I just say that that's not how we've seen the Oklahoma City Thunder effectively and efficiently score the basketball. That's not their way of scoring the basketball. And so maybe this is something that you have to be concerned about when dealing with the team that's applying the kind of pressure that the Indiana Pacers are applying, because this is going all the way back to Game 1, Shaw. I said this: if the game becomes a low-scoring affair when it comes to the Pacers and the Thunder, I feel that the Thunder have the better advantage because they're better efficiently scoring the basketball than the Pacers. However, if the Thunder are conceding additional shots, if they're conceding opportunities for the Pacers to keep going at them, now you're forcing the Oklahoma City Thunder to actually make a lot of those misses, right? And every time that they continue to miss and don't stop the team on the other end, it becomes anywhere between a 4-5 point swing that now pushes things further behind for them. And then you see them having to exhaust so much effort and them coming back into games, staying in games, and all that other kind of stuff. And to me, that's not where you want to be if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I'm just highlighting the fact that the 3-point shot to me seems to always be their bailout mechanism rather than something that is executed within strategy and consistency.
Well, I mean, you can't jump back and forth. I mean, because like I said, if you're worried about the quality of shots that they're getting, I can maybe go with you that on there. I think Jalen Williams, J-Dub didn't attack in the same way that we saw obviously in the previous game and getting downhill and getting into the teeth of the defense, as you say all the time. That wasn't there. But again, the 3-point shot specifically was not the issue. They were only 1 of 11 going into the half, and they were still down 20 points. So it's not like they shot 25 threes in the first half. It was 11 shots. They didn't make any. And that's just how that goes sometimes. And then they end up going 5 of 10 in the fourth quarter when the game is out of hand. So to me, like it's not necessarily a moot point, but I think in terms of the quality of shots and who's being aggressive and who's getting the shots is something that does need to take into account, which brings me back to the Chet standpoint as well, too. Caruso not really being able to be effective offensively. Indiana's not worried about him from the perimeter. Caruso's had some pretty robust scoring games in this series, 20 points and hitting some threes and here and there. That just wasn't the case tonight. We've said in this series, right? We thought OKC's defense was the better of the two defenses. Indiana's defense is showing to be not maybe just as formidable, pretty damn formidable in its own self, though. But I did say I thought Indiana's bench scoring was better than OKC's bench scoring. OKC's bench scoring often comes off of the turnovers that the entirety of that defense ultimately creates. So now if you have Toppin and McConnell and Mathurin in certain points of the series playing decent to high-level defense and still giving that offensive output, as we see Indiana's having that be able to oscillate, throughout the course of the series, some guys are on one night. McConnell's been pretty consistent. Toppin a couple of nights, Mathurin another night. That, to me, is something that OKC is having a hard time match because they are top heavy when it comes to the scores, especially if Caruso is not going to have an explosive scoring game off the bench while still giving you positive defense. Hartenstein, not really a factor offensively in this series to this stage. So right now, if Wiggins or Wallace are not getting hot, that's where OKC is really going to struggle with their bench scoring and scoring in general.
So let me ask you this question then, Shaw. If you're OKC, right? What do you do, right? Like what exactly is it that you do to open things up for Chet Holmgren, who to me seems like the only time he is effective is if he's shooting the three. Not, is he going to give you anything for rebounding? Is he going to give you anything for second chance opportunities? Isaiah Hartenstein. Same thing, right? Like, what are we saying needs to happen in order for them to be a factor in a game 7, so to speak?
I think offensively, so without looking at like Second Spectrum and all those, great data analysis serving sites, I think there's the aspect of actually playing some pick and roll and maybe even some inverted pick and roll with both Chet, J-Dub, and SGA, some combination of those three guys on a regular basis. What we often see is a lot of swing, and then J-Dub or SGA is kind of going one-on-one. SGA may look for a pick and roll and then just try to break his guy down, but there's not a lot of pick and pop or pick and kind of like throw to the roll man, OKC's offense. I think you see some of that with Hartenstein, but maybe some of the dribble handoffs. When Chet gets into trouble and he drives and he gets bottled up, then he's looking to kind of make a pass. He did do that in the first half where he tried to drive, Turner shut him down. Then he kind of did a bailout to Caruso. Caruso drove, but Turner got back and blocked the shot. But they just need more movement in the totality of their offense. And I think in some ways that's where even Yarkis and Wallace's and guys like that can get some catches off secondary action. But if they do become too stagnant or too ball dominant with either one of their two great all-stars in SGA and Jalen Williams, that's where things can get kind of bogged down, especially if the defense, like Indiana's defense, is going to be as active as they are. And they're like kind of sitting and waiting on some of those actions. They're almost baiting them in the same way that OKC has been baiting, other teams into this playoffs. I think Carlisle's done a great and masterful job in trying to kind of force, in some ways, to what you're saying earlier, to get to reduce the quality of OKC's shots or reduce them to more one-on-one action where they feel like, all right, maybe we can actually live with this because our depth offensively is better than their depth offensively, as long as Indiana's not turning the ball over. But that's the second part here. Turnovers have been such a big part of his NBA finals that we knew that was going to be the case, but it just continues to come up. It just continues to rear its ugly head. And OKC had a really, really hard time handling the ball. As I said, SGA with 8 turnovers tonight, very uncharacteristic, and you cannot win on the road with 8 turnovers from your MVP.
Yeah. So, again, I'm just going to look at what I just saw from this particular game. It just didn't look like they were prepared, right? Like even when they were pivoting to try to move the ball a little bit more, Hartenstein dropped a surefire pass cut into the basket because he wasn't ready for the pass, because I think he was just basically expecting SGA to take up a shot, right? J-Dub made a pass, I believe, to Chet Holmgren. He couldn't handle the pass, right? Because I think they were basically waiting, for J-Dub to go and do a little pick and pop situation or whatever, the ISO pop situation, right? And I think, a lot of the points that you made, solid points. I think what I'm getting at is that these guys, right, they need to be better about how they want to attack the Indiana Pacers. Because it seems like if the intent is you want to sit and wait and watch, and if that's what you want to do, then be all in about doing that. If you are, if you got an SGA and you got a J-Dub, that means though that the rest of them have to assimilate and go in and attack and do the necessary things that I think we have seen them do throughout the course of this series. It's not as if anything is completely changed in the sense that if OKC is going to be like this and Rick Carlisle is countered, that the OKC has figured out a way to counter it back, or at least make them pay for that. But in this particular game, it didn't look like they were prepared for anything at all, right? Not even prepared to have a contingency to whatever it was that was taking place in their struggles offensively.
Can I go back to an earlier point you said, though, because as you're saying that, it brings me to maybe one thing when we talk about OKC's overall mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe subconsciously, maybe we're not there. We're not in the locker room. We can't say this. We're not psychologists, but there could be the aspect, right, of, hey, Hallie's down. We should be able to get these boys tonight. Right. And maybe they took their eye off the ball a little bit, just figuring like, okay, there's no way this team is going to be able to beat us in the way that we are with their star player having a calf strain. Like there's no way that should be the case. And they were in for obviously a rude awakening and surprise. But the other part of this too is OKC offensively, they do need to figure out a way to be better when their defense is not turning into offense for them. If they're not turning, those live ball turnovers, those pick sixes, as we say, all right, how are you getting your buckets efficiently within the offensive and the half court set? That's something that I think OKC has not necessarily mastered in this specific series because they are so, again, ball dominant and, in J-Dub and SGA, but they've been getting contributions kind of throughout. We know Wiggins has had moments in this series. We know Caruso's had moments in this series, and both of those guys didn't really do much tonight, unfortunately, for them in Game 6. So that's where I think Daigneault then needs to readjust and say, all right, well, if we're not going to be able to force turnovers, and again, you can't predict that. Like it could be your night. All of a sudden, Indiana starts throwing the ball around, and then you're just in better spots, and you're getting those pick sixes that we're talking about. But you need to figure out ways like, all right, how are we going to get efficient offense and be able to truly match what they're doing to us on the other side of the basketball with Indiana's kind of like pace where 7 or 8 guys really are capable scorers. And I think there was at one point in the telecast, same thing. They said, oh, like 7 guys already have 7 points tonight for Indiana. And when it's really that type of, death by depth type of situation, that's where, Indiana does have the advantage offensively. But with their defense turning up the way that it has been, that's really what took them over their edge here tonight. 21 turnovers for OKC to 10 for Indiana. Again, 8 by SGA alone. And I think that's your ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. Callie Warnshaw, Baseline NBA podcast. I just got a couple more points in regards to it, because something that you just mentioned, it just made me kind of think about this. This series, Shaw, has shown us different facets or different faces of each of these teams specifically. One team obviously has figured out a way to somewhat change its face when necessary in order for it to continue to thrive and stay in the series, right? The other team has had the luxury of always falling back to what you're saying because they've been so great defensively and because they have a propensity to get teams to turn the ball over. This was one of those games in which, even though they got some turnovers, it didn't hurt the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers, however, turned OKC over, and it hurt OKC. More importantly, it was the timing of the turnovers. Even when OKC was trying to make something of a run, a semblance of a run, Indiana got them to turn the ball over, and it basically jacked the lead back up again. You know, that third quarter buzzer beater by Shepherd to boost it to a 30-point lead. I mean, like, all of that was just like a writing on the wall. But the one thing that I think that really stood out to me, especially from watching this game, and something that I'm going to be paying attention to and how Daigneault makes adjustments, because he's going to have to. And it concerns me when I look at OKC. They don't have legit back, guys that play with their back to the basket. It feels like every single one of them has to play straight up, face up basketball, regardless of on an ISO or if it's pick and roll play, pick and pop play, whatever it is. It never feels like the Indiana Pacers has ever been put in a position or a situation where OKC is backing down their players into the paint or below, right? It's got to be like a face-up situation. And where I want to see OKC make their adjustment is, to your point, what we were talking about earlier, moving and cutting towards the basket. When Caruso is moving towards the basket and getting those, he chips and cuts down and gives space where if SGA is coming down that lane, coming down that side on the opposite end, here comes Caruso, there's an opportunity for SGA to make a legit pass, or there's an opportunity for J-Dub to make a legit pass. Dort, Caruso, Holmgren, Hart, whoever is going to be out there with those guys, they have got to move north-south. The east-west thing can only play so long, because at some point, the Indiana Pacers will adjust, and it's going back to what I was saying before with the propensity to shoot the three, not in volume, but out of necessity, because they feel like that's all that's necessary, and maybe out of confidence they think that they can make it, or long mid-range jumpers. That, to me, doesn't suit the Oklahoma City Thunder well, especially if they're not rebounding the basketball.
Yeah, well, I think SGA does post up, so to speak, from time to time, but I think it's what is that secondary action that is being run on the weak side, or to give SGA passing lanes. But you're right, in terms of Holmgren and Hartenstein, they're not post up guys. The other Jalen Williams, when he's in, maybe he can post up a little bit, but he's also very much a perimeter type dude. So I don't know, especially with Indiana's bodies with Siakam and Turner, like if that's even a viable option for them. I think one way or the other, again, it's going to have to come from the guards or the wings. But I think just the aspect of trying to manufacture easy points is something that OKC did not have, obviously, tonight, and hasn't really had, I think, throughout the course of the series, again, unless they're getting out on that fast break. So, but still, nevertheless, it would kind of be the antithesis of what we're saying. 40 points in the paint for OKC tonight to 30. So, one way or another, OKC is still getting in and getting into the lane and getting points in the paint, but maybe not in the same form or fashion that you're alluding to, in terms of, again, like straight post-ups or whatever. It is off cuts and secondary action, maybe some fast breaks here and there as well too. But the Pacers won that battle tonight, 22-11. So again, a great performance from the Indiana Pacers, forcing a game 7 in Oklahoma City. 2 days off for Tyrese Haliburton, to get that leg right and maybe be a contributor. We know that OKC crowd is going to be rocking. So I'm very intrigued by this, and maybe I'll get to ultimately be right, OKC in 7. But the fact that we have a 7-game series here for these two mid-market teams is something that the NBA and NBA fans should be proud of. Yes, this one was a blowout and maybe a little bit of a snoozer, but we are now getting a game 7. And as you alluded to earlier in the show, we just hope it's going to be a good one here with everything on the line. and everybody on all these teams banged up to some degree, but just continuously a gutty performance here by Haliburton and the rest of this Indiana Pacers ball club.
What are you hoping for? Just 2 quick points. What are 2 things that you're hoping for this game 7?
I mean, I think it just said it, man. I want to see good basketball, right? I'd love to see mistake-free basketball that keeps the game tight and really just can the players on the floor decide it. That to me is more than anything else. I don't need no referees getting involved. I don't want a crap ton of sloppy turnovers, whatever. Like just ball, just hoop. That's what I want to see and see who actually comes out of it. Do the Pacers prove literally everybody, the entire world wrong and get this done with their backs against the wall again on the road, hobbled star? Like all the narratives are in this favor right now. And again, can OKC, this very, very young basketball team, capture their first championship that a lot of people think will be the first of many if they actually get it done? But this Pacers team, man, they are tough as hell, brother. Like I have so much respect. I can no longer doubt, Haliburton and his crew. And again, shout out again to Rick Carlisle, man. Win or lose, what a effing coaching performance he's done this masterful playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I want this to be a close, game 7. But I also want it with both teams playing at the peak of their abilities. When I say peak, I'm just talking about what's got them to the dance, what's brought them here. I want to see the Indiana Pacers push the Oklahoma City Thunder defense to the limit. And I want to see the Oklahoma City Thunder push the Indiana Pacers offense, to the limit. I don't think it's going to be a clean game because I think both teams are going to turn the ball over. I think both teams are going to play nervous basketball. But with that being said, Shaw, I want to see, the guys who, made us fall in love with this NBA Finals all step up and do something, have a moment. There's so many opportunities for each and every single one of these guys on the basketball court that has participated in the NBA Finals to have a moment in a game 7. So the TJ McConnells, the Isaiah Hartensteins, even the Chet Holmgrens, as bad as he played, this is an opportunity for him to have a moment, a block, a 3, whatever. But he can have a moment in this. There will be opportunities there, and it's just a question of whether or not they're going to make sure that they keep their heads, on tilt and be able to execute when it matters the most.
Yeah, I mean, both teams have pressure. It's NBA championship, right? Everything is on the line here. But OKC with the home court advantage, obviously having gone up in the series and had a chance to close out tonight and not doing it, all the pressure really is on them. And so I think Indiana's not playing with house money, but they can play me a little bit more looser. I'm like, all right, man, no one expected this to be here.
Well,
let's get it done.
This is what we were afraid of. This is when I say afraid of, but this is what I was afraid of for the Oklahoma City Thunder in the sense that, this was a game that I really think it would have been better suited that you go out there and you compete and you play the kind of basketball that gives you an opportunity, gives you a chance, puts the pressure on the Indiana Pacers to have to execute in the fourth quarter, execute plays down the stretch. They didn't, the Oklahoma City Thunder didn't do that. They did not give themselves a chance. And if nothing else, by losing the way that they lost, it gave more confidence for the Indiana Pacers to basically walk into this game 7 knowing that the pressure is all on OKC. No matter how much people want to cut it and slice it, and yeah, we'll even say that Oklahoma City Thunder is still the better team, whatever. The fact of the matter is you got to close out. And we've seen this before where when you had your opportunities to shut a team down, you don't do it. Ask the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is not a situation that you want to take lightly. No matter how smart and intelligent a basketball team can be, you don't handle your business. You leave the door open, and a team like the Indiana Pacers, who have the offensive firepower to put a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder on its heels when you had an opportunity to shut them down, could very well do you in a game 7 situation on your home court.
We'll see, brother. Game 7 on Sunday. It looks like we'll have to do this live situation yet again, see who will actually capture the NBA championship. And there's still so much going on around the NBA. Trades happen that we haven't even discussed yet. So and
a team sale that has tilted
10
you know,
Billy. Our guy Jabari was rocking with us a little bit earlier on the stream too. Yo,
Mhm.
shout out to the Lakers, man. They $10 billion sale, but we'll get to that at another point in time.
that's probably why he ain't on the show right now. He's trying to run down there to see if he can collect the check.
Fair enough, man. I can't wait, man. Game 7 on Sunday, y'all. Make sure you stay tapped in, man.
Absolutely. So once again, man, we appreciate everybody for hopping on board. Shout outs to our family, the 19 Media Group family. As always, man, you know, showing the love, man, Tyler, our man Mojo. You know, as always, man, we appreciate the love and support. We will be back here, same time, same bat channel for this Game 7 wrap up for the Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. You know we do. Thanks for hopping on board with us for our Game 6 NBA Finals wrap up. We'll catch up with you next time.